Hey guys, today we'll be learning how to draft this Vicky James sleeve and can be styled in different ways. And yes, if this is your first time of coming across this channel, please subscribe. Subscription is absolutely free. Yes, it is. So quickly, let's get into the business of the day. So I'll be using this pattern paper for drafting my basic sleeve. That is what I'll be using. And I'll be using this net, of course, that is our main fabric for this tutorial. And I'll be using this for beading. I'll just share a tip on how you can bead something simple. So quickly, my pattern paper is on fold, and then from the starting point line, I'm just going to go ahead and measure down my sleeve length. You can go ahead and measure whatever sleeve length you're using and add your sewing allowance. But for this tutorial, I'm using 22. And then to get my cap sleeve length, there's a formula for it. You divide your round bust measurement by 12 and then add 1 inches to it. So mine gave me 3.5. So I'm just going to go ahead and then mark the 3.5 and then connect it with a straight ruler. Whatever yours is giving you, that is what you would mark. So from the starting point line to my elbow is 12 inches. Whatever yours might be 11, yours might be 10, yours might be 13. Just go ahead and mark yours. So I'm going to connect it to the straight ruler. So on my cap sleeve length, I'm going to divide my round armhole by 2 and add 1 inches sewing allowance. I'm adding 1 inch sewing allowance this part because I don't want my armpit part side to be very tight. So around my elbow, my round elbow is 10 inches. So I'm going to divide 10 inches by 2, which is 5. And then I'm going to go ahead and mark it. Then I will not be adding any sewing allowance to this because the net I'm using is stretchy. But it's a very stretchy net, so I won't be adding any sewing allowance to it. I'll be using my exact round elbow measurements. I only added on the cap sleeve then because I don't want my armpits to be tight. So around my round wrist is 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So I'm going to go ahead and mark it. But if you're sewing your normal sleeve, you can go ahead and add your 1 inch sewing allowance on the around the elbow and then around the wrist area. But I'm not doing that, so I'm just going to go ahead and cancel it because I won't be needing it for this tutorial. So on my cap sleeve, from that point, I'm going to connect it to the apex point, to the starting point line, to that sharp point with a straight line. I'm just going to connect it straight and then get the midpoint. From that point to the starting point is 8. So the midpoint is 4. I'm going to mark it. So from that 4, you want to use your curved ruler to curve it upward and then downward. So I'm just going to use my free hand to do this thing. This is not a standard. This is just a method that I use and I'm okay with it. So after getting my curves, I'm just going to go ahead to connect my straight lines together from my cap sleeve length to my elbow, and then from my elbow length down to the wrist. So if you're sewing a normal sleeve, you just have to connect it to that allowances we said we're not going to use. So but just some explanation I'm trying to do here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. So after cutting it out, you're going to go ahead to open up the sleeve, your pattern paper, I mean to say. So basically it's your sleeve. So when you open it up, we already have like a guideline, a straight line there. You want to use your pencil, your marker, whatever it is, to just draw a straight line. That is what's going to help you when you're working with the net. So this is the net I'm using, and like I said earlier, it's very stretchy. That was why I did not add sewing allowance. So you want to pleat it. That is what you want to keep doing, and then you pleat it till you finish, so you get to the end of your pattern. And then the length I'm using for the net is 34, 22 plus 14, that's 34. But you can double yours. You can use 22, 22 if you have excess. You can even use more than that if you have excess net. But this is the only thing I have, so that is what I'm using. So you can use pin to hold it if you want, but I'm more comfortable sewing directly from the sewing machine. So quickly we'll go ahead and do that. So this line that you marked, make sure it's facing you. That is what is going to help you when you're sewing, and then you're going to be sewing on that line, and then all you have to keep doing is just pick, like you pleat it, and then you give it a space, and then you pleat another one, you give it another space, and then you pleat another one. This is all you keep doing till you get to the end of the pattern paper. Just keep pleating and keep giving it some little space. But if you want it to be very full, please go ahead and do it. It's just your preference, however you want it. If you want it scanty, you just keep spacing it and then pick and then sew. And if you want it very close, you keep pleating it very closely. So mine, I was giving mine a little bit of space, and if you notice, I'm sewing on exact that straight line that we drew earlier. So this is all I'll keep doing till I get to the end of the pattern paper. So you can actually use any color. You could use black, you could use skin net, you could use blue, any color of net. That is what you use. And then I'm just going to advise the net you'll be using, don't use the hard net. There are softer nets, like even colored net comes like skin net texture. So at those points, my fabric is already less, so but I'm just going to go ahead to still pleat it. It's shortened the length of my sleeve, but I still went ahead to pleat it that way. So quickly I'm just going to so you want to stitch after sewing the middle part, and the middle part is just going to help you to stitch the outer part of your sleeve. So you want to arrange it like you're using the pleating you did at the middle to stitch at the edges of your sleeve. So you want to arrange it the way I am doing right now. Just keep pulling it in, and then make sure it's laying very well before you sew. Just make sure it's laying very well, just the way it appeared in the middle, and then you keep sewing it till you get to the end of the net of the pattern paper, or where your net stop. Do the same thing on the other side too till you get to the upper part of the net as well. And then you want to also sew round, like around the curves. You can skip it if you want, you can just trim out the excess, but I just decided to sew mine, and that was what I did. So you just have to sew it. After you finish sewing it, we'll go ahead and trim out the excess net we have from the net. So we're just going to go ahead and trim out this excess net you're seeing here all the way around before we tear out, like we pull out the paper, the pattern paper we use in stitching on top of it. So this is what you will do. So after doing it, so you just go ahead and tear out the paper. So you can actually use any paper of your choice. You could actually use newspaper, you could use normal notebook, just you look for a sellotape to just gum it. So after that, we'll go ahead and then shape our sleeve. So I'm starting from the lower part, so that when I get to the top and I have excess, I can actually just trim it. So I'm not like shaping anything, I'm just sewing it with just some few inches in, because I didn't add any sewing allowance, because I told you the net is very stretchy. So I had to trim out a little bit of excess. So this is me trying it out just to show you how it came out, and yeah, it really came out very fine. And I didn't, like I told you, I didn't add any extra allowance, and you see we still had excess on it because the net was very stretchy. So I decided to add a flea to it. You can decide to add whatever you want to add. So quickly I'm just going to share a tip on how to bead. So first of all, you want to tie down this part, like you want to tie it very well, and then pick 2 beads and then pass it, like just allow it go in, and then allow it to lay flat on the dress, on the sleeve, sorry, allow it lay flat. So wherever it's stopping, That point is where you're going to pass your needle in and pass it out again. And then after doing that, you're going to pick another bead, two beads. I'm doing two beads because it's more easier and it lays very well. So this is it laying very well. So I'm going to go ahead, pick another two beads, and then it's going to lay just the way you're seeing. After laying, wherever it's laid, like wherever the bead is stopping, that is where you're going to pass your needle in. Just you see where my hand is, you pass it in and then you bring it out. So I'll keep doing this thing till I get to where I want it to stop. So this is it though, but I got tired. Beading is not for the weak. So at those points, this second part were busy designing themselves the way they wanted. It's not my fault. So I'm just going to show us how you can space it. So before you space it, you want to make sure you tie it very well so that the beads don't move. So after tying it, you push in your needle inward and keep pushing it till where you want the needle to come out, and then you pull it out. So that is the space I left. Okay, so where the needle came out, you want to tie it again so that it's very strong. If you don't tie it, the thread keeps moving and then your bead will not really relax very well. So after tying it, I make sure it's strong enough. So I'm going to go ahead and pick my two bead, and then I'll keep doing the same thing just the way we started till you get to where you want to stop, and then you tie it again. And basically that is it. Our sleeve is ready. This is like a 3-in-1 tutorial. So if you've watched to this very end, thank you so very much. So you can style it you can style it with your flea and with your bead. See you guys next time. Bye.